Thank you, Speaker. I rise to speak on behalf of the opposition on the Automated External Defibrillators Public Access Bill 2023, a bill that we support, and I'll be flagging some amendments a little later. This is a bill that has broad stakeholder support and has precedence in another state. It has the potential to save both lives and have a beneficial impact on our economy. I thought I'd start by telling a story that some people in this place might be familiar with. When the late Kerry Packer suffered a heart attack on the polo field in 1990, he was revived by a passing ambulance that just happened to have, by chance, a portable defibrillator, one of very few at the time, and it saved his life. Packer called the then Liberal Premier Nick Greiner from his hospital bed and said, "I'm told it costs $5 million to put them in every ambulance. I'll go your halves." And so, in tandem with the Liberal government, Mr Packer famously had defibs installed in every ambulance in New South Wales, and they were referred to as Packer whackers. These days, external defibs have evolved from weighing 70 kilograms to some current models weighing in at only 300 grams. In other words, it's never been more feasible to roll out widespread public access to defibrillators, and we know the importance of doing so. Every year in New South Wales, more than 8,500 people experienced an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, and survival rates remain low, with only 12% of cases surviving to discharge from hospital. For every minute a patient is in cardiac arrest, not receiving CPR or an AED shock, chances of survival drop by 10%. Prompt defibrillation within 3 to 5 minutes of collapse can lead to rates of survival to hospital discharge after OHCA as high as 50 to 70%. We all probably know someone who has unfortunately died from cardiac arrest or suffered a heart attack. I know so many people. It's often a very sudden and unforeseen emergency, and the human toll is so deep. Health economists also point to the impact on productivity, because about a third of people who suffer from heart attack deaths were working full-time. Analysis of heart attacks in Victoria showed that reduced productivity led to GDP losses of $448 million. In South Australia, the estimated cost to the government there of this policy, a very similar policy over a 4-year period, was $7.2 million. It is small change compared to the impact that it can have. So we have an opportunity today to both save lives and save enormous money to our economy by supporting this important bill. So it is, as I said, modelled on one introduced in South Australia in 2022. I commend the member for Kiama for bringing this to the House. It's a really important bill. It's also a bill that the Heart Foundation wants us to introduce. And I quote the Heart Foundation here by saying, quote, "New South Wales should do the same. The Heart Foundation is ready to assist the government on the rollout of such an initiative. This will save lives and decrease the burden of out-of-hospital cardiac arrests on our community." The Heart Foundation has been advocating for the following: a mandate on the installation and maintenance of AEDs in large commercial buildings. That's what this bill is attempting to do. Funding the purchase and installation of AEDs in all publicly owned or contracted transport vehicles, including buses, trains and light rail. Again, what this bill is seeking to achieve. Fund the purchase and installation of AEDs in all publicly owned or managed buildings and state-owned corporations. Expand the existing program to fund the purchase of AEDs for sporting organisations to ensure that every sporting facility in New South Wales has an AED accessible to the public. Again, that's what this bill attempts to achieve. I note that in relation to sporting organisations, it was the former coalition government that introduced local sports defib grants. It was this Labor government that capped it and imposed limits based on socio-economic data. Heart attacks don't discriminate, nor should our policies. It is one of the key principles of our system of government that we have universal access to healthcare. So to the substance of this bill, the objectives of this bill are to require the installation of automatic external defibrillators in certain buildings and vehicles, and I note that the buildings must be over 1,200 metres squared, so this would not mandate installation of defibs in small businesses. I also note and congratulate many of the larger commercial entities and offices who do this voluntarily. Places like Officeworks, Coles, Woolies, Bunnings, Dan Murphy's, just to name a few. With regards to vehicles, we will seek an amendment, which I'll come to later when it's appropriate, but we would require the bill requires the registration and maintenance of defibs. And this job has been made easier due to the fact that former Minister for Customer Service Victor Dominello has already set up a register for defibs, so it's set to go. C, the bill requires the Minister to keep publicly accessible registers of defibs, including the location. Again, we've got that ready to go, and develop a strategy to inform the public about defibrillators. And this is important. Hand in hand with the introduction of this bill should be a public awareness campaign, because we need to give people the confidence to use these devices. And we need to reassure them that they are easy to use. You can't get it wrong, and you can't get blamed for using one. I want to thank St John's Ambulance, who did give me a brief demonstration of how they worked. And it was simple. You simply open up the machine. It actually talks to you. It tells you what to do. And you can't send a shock to someone who doesn't need the shock. So, it is very important that we get that message out to people, because it is confronting, but it's a simple message. It's an easy one. It's easy to do, and it's our job to do that. Application of AED increases the survival rate. And if the right treatment is given within the first 3 to 5 minutes, the chance of survival can increase from 6% to 74%. That's why this bill is so important. So the rollout is also important. The government, in supporting this bill, would control the timing and rollout of defibs via regulation. This would not have to have sudden and immediate impacts on the budget. We would not have to install defibs in every single bus tomorrow. I also note that this bill would commence 2 years after assent, thereby allowing time for planning and preparation. Mr. Speaker, I want to quote from former Ironman Guy Leach, who told me once about a day that he will never forget. The day one of his mates, Chucky, collapsed during one of their paddling sessions. Guy performed CPR, an ambulance came 10 minutes later, and they had a defib. But by then, the sudden damage from that cardiac arrest was too late. He never recovered, and he died in hospital a week later. Guy said, and I quote him, "One of the most haunting questions I ask myself is, what if? What if I had a defib in the car? What if there was one in the cafe nearby? What if I could have put Chucky on a defib in that first 180 seconds? If any of my other fit and healthy friends, my kids, my wife were to suffer from a sudden cardiac arrest, where is the nearest defib now? Does anyone know how to use it?" So today in this chamber, we all need to know that if we had the opportunity to make a change today and we didn't make that change, would we be asking what if? As we stand here today, there is a defib on the wall just outside of the chamber here. There's one on every floor for parliamentarians. Why should people in major sporting clubs, major government buildings or commercial premises be treated differently? Why not them? Why us? Speaker, we cannot wait for another high-profile cardiac arrest to jolt us into action. We cannot wait for another enigmatic figure to write out a cheque. We must all act now, which is why I commend this bill to the House.